Welcome to Brainstoryum. I'm Anna Tizard, award-winning dreampunk and deeply weird fantasy author. And yes, that's me and my fiction that's deeply weird. Explore and imagine with me the most unexpected story ideas using the surrealist word game of Exquisite Corpse. Find out more and join in at annatizard.com. This is a storytelling challenge unlike anything you've tried before. Hello, imaginative people. I'm Anna Tizard and this is episode 51 of Brainstoryum. I hope life is treating you well, but whatever your state of mind is, I feel certain that today's show can only improve your mood as I share the magic of storytelling, but not just mine. In the last few episodes, I've been inviting you to share your story ideas based on writing prompts that have come up on the show. And today there are some really good ones I can't wait to read out. But before I do, and before I reach once more into the socks of destiny for 3 new writing prompts, someone has written a poem about me and the show. Ev Days, or Everett Days, is a poet I bumped into on social media recently who penned this poem after listening to Brainstoryum. Anna Tizard, a true delight, she bojangles peeps who write, never trite or just alright, the epitome of erudite. In her virtual auditorium, she conducts her brainy stormy Energy serves midichlorian, leadership straight Praetorian. Wow, I'm in awe of poets. Did I mention that before? Well, I'm in awe of you, Ev Days. Thank you so much for sharing this incredible poem and letting me read it out on the show. To think that I've inspired your imagination in this way. Between this and the other story ideas that came in from listeners, I feel like imagination knows no bounds. On that note, let's get on with the show. So here they are, the amazing story ideas suggested by listeners based on a writing prompt from last show, which was The Transdimensional Witch. Nick Vracar said, the young woman was right at home in the asylum, frightful and screaming about other realities, but the padded walls didn't stop the world from changing before her eyes. She knew she had to either control her ability to cross dimensions or accept that she was totally insane. Now there's an idea. That could be the central focus of the story. Are these real dimensions, or are they all in her mind? Then again, the mind is a kind of reality itself. The experiences we have happen in our minds as much as out there. A very dreampunk theme. Thank you, Nick. Patrick Towie said, there are 2 parallel worlds, mirrors of each other. In one, witchcraft is outlawed and punished severely. In the other, witches rule society. One witch has the ability to cross between them. Well, this could be the basis of some serious world building. And while the worlds have been separate from each other for years, maybe even centuries, could the actions of one transdimensional witch set off events that could lead to an outright war? This is a very ripe idea. Thank you for sharing, Patrick Towie. From Zed Prospero, I had the following comments. I like the idea of relating it to actual physical dimensions rather than alternate dimensions. Zed goes on to suggest that a transdimensional witch is able to travel as a two-dimensional picture in a standard three-dimensional space, and maybe time and space being the fourth and fifth dimensions. Maybe something terrible is trapped in the sixth. A lot of really mind-bending ideas to think about there. What indeed might be trapped in another dimension, and how might a witch who can travel in a two-dimensional form like a picture have to do about that? Thank you, Zed Prospero. And last, but definitely not least, Alessandro Bozzo, a Canadian author and the person who originally inspired me to get started with this podcast, sent me a message that goes like this. You're going to love this. You are the transdimensional witch. One day, you buy some green tea from a shop you don't remember seeing before. As you exit the tea shop, you look back to discover it is no longer there. The more you think on it, the less you can remember about it. Later on, during a Brainstoryum recording, you brew a pot of green tea as you usually do. When you bring it towards you to drink it, you stare into the liquid in the cup and discover an image clear as day. It jogs your memory and you realise it is the disappearing tea shop that you had just purchased the tea from earlier. Startled, you drop the cup, spilling magical green tea all over the socks of destiny. When you go to touch them, they're completely dry, along with all the scraps of paper inside. You guess the hot tea simply evaporated and continue with playing the Exquisite Corpse word game. After choosing words from the socks and completing the word prompt, you and the socks of destiny are transported to the location of the word prompt and discover that the characters and situation are real. You pull more words out of the socks and are transported again. It is then that you realise that you are inexplicably tied to the socks of destiny. In brackets, possible story title? ? Wow, Alex, that is just amazing. You really transported me there. On reading this, I felt totally glued, like I needed to know what was going to happen next. Transdimensional indeed. Stories really are a means of transportation into different dimensions, the dimensions of our imaginations. And when you feel swept up by a story and you become a little lost in the moment because you just can't wait to hear what happens next, that is the magic of story. You certainly have that magic, Alessandro. If you'd like to connect with Alessandro Bozzo and his creative imagination, check out his website at abozproductions.com. So that's ABOZZ productions.com. Right. Now, on that note, get your pen, your imagination, and your weirdness at the ready. It is time to find out what new transdimensional delights await us in the Socks of Destiny. That's right, and for those who are less familiar with the show and with the game, Exquisite Corpse mixes your words and phrases into a sentence that goes describing word noun, action, describing word noun. Okay, so I'm going to reach into the describing word sock and pull out first word. Okay, this is from Anonymous. Irascible. Okay, let's grab a noun. This is from Paul Benfield. Lumberjack. Okay, so we have a grumpy lumberjack. A grumperjack. Okay, let's find a word from the action sock. This is from Fraser Armitage. Recorded. Okay, what or who did they record? Let's grab another describing word. This is from Ebenezer. Downtrodden. Okay, final word, final noun. If I can get it off my finger. Who's this from? Paul Thomas. Victim. Okay, that's quite open-ended actually. It might not even be a person. Let me just read. I'll read the whole thing and then I'll start to think about it. So, the irascible lumberjack recorded the downtrodden victim. So this victim, it could be a tree that's being chopped down by this lumberjack, a victim of his hacking away at the forest, for better or worse. But what are the lumberjack's intentions? Why is he irascible? He might not be angry with the trees. He's just doing his job. He might even be helping the forest by cutting down diseased trees and preventing the spread of something like a fungus. So he's not necessarily the bad guy here, and the trees might not be the victims equally. But something's going on in his life, something that's left him rather irritable this morning. It might be physical, that he's twisted his ankle and that's made him grumpy, or he has a blister on his hand right where the handle of the saw has to rest. Why am I picturing him with a handsaw instead of a chainsaw, which is surely a bit more practical and easier to use? In fact, an axe would be more practical than a handsaw if we're talking about manual tools. But sometimes it's best not to fight the initial mental image that springs into your mind's eye and just go with it and use it as the basis for whatever it is you're going to invent. Invent reasons why that image has come to you. It's probably to do with my imagination jumping to the most familiar, well-worn image of a lumberjack using traditional manual tools. But no matter, let's find a more nuanced reason for why he'll be using manual tools rather than a chainsaw, if this is going to be set in contemporary times. Maybe he doesn't want to be discovered doing whatever it is in the woods. And using these simpler tools means it's really quiet. Even if he is removing diseased trees from the forest and preventing a full-blown outbreak of a fungal infection, there's something else going on. He's being secretive, deliberately quiet. The Exquisite Corpse says the irascible lumberjack recorded the downtrodden victim. What is there in this empty forest to record? Maybe it's not as empty as we think. Let's see. Ted originally bought the camera and microphone to film animals in the forest and upload the videos onto an online platform, Wilderness Wanderers. Watching other people's videos and chatting on the website with other nature lovers cheered him up. Lately, he'd been feeling so alone. Since his girlfriend left him and then his dog died, his dream cabin in the woods had begun to feel like a nightmare. Disconnected, empty, with only the rush of the wind through the trees to keep him company. But that was before the feeling began that he was being watched. He'd made up his mind already that Wilderness Wanderers was a friendly sort of group that he could share videos and stories with and maybe even meet someone. But what made him spend so much money on a camera and high-sensitive microphone instead of just using his phone was the twitch in the back of his neck. The silence that grew so loud it had to be something or someone. If he was being watched, he would watch right back. Gradually, he became more sensitized to the sounds or lack of sounds in the forest as he worked. His original plan, the plan he told himself anyway, was to leave the camera out overnight to pick up nocturnal creatures like badgers and foxes, maybe even bats. But he more often left it running during the day, a short distance behind him, half covered by dry leaves, keeping an eye out for him. High-pitched noises, like a muted whisper, seemed to come from the branches themselves as he worked. At first, he thought the trees were screaming as he cut them down, a tiny, almost inaudible wail, like a thin, distant whistle whenever he stopped chopping. He stared at a patch of discoloured bark in front of him and saw it at once, a face no bigger than his thumbnail, veined with wrinkles like the underside of a leaf, its beady eyes accusing. Ted stumbled back, gasping. He saw another, then another, until every leaf that quivered in the breeze made his heart jump. The forest was indeed infected with goblins. Okay, this is just really weird. I mean, does he think that he's hallucinating? Do you think he's hallucinating? He might well think that at first. But maybe he shares his secret with someone in the group, someone he's begun to trust, because he has footage now. What happens next? Maybe that's up to you if you decide to write this. I think it's time for another Exquisite Corpse, eh? Okay, let's see. We've got my first describing word is from Janet Anthony Buck. Fading. Let's grab a noun. This is from Fraser Armitage. Footnote. Okay, interesting. We have a book involved in this story. Action is from Paul Thomas. Swallowed. Okay. This is going to be interesting. Our next describing word is from Judah Mahay. Susurrant. Ooh, that's a juicy word. So it sort of means murmuring or whispering. I haven't come across that word for a while. Let's try it. Final word is from Fraser Armitage again. Plunder. Oh. Well, technically, I guess that's anything that's stolen and of value. Oh, I do like this one. So I'm going to read out the whole thing. So, the fading footnote swallowed the susurrant plunder. Feels quite poetic somehow. I have no idea what it means, but I really like the sound of it. I think I might need some green tea before I can come up with a story idea. So, and this has been brewing for a little while, so just give that a little bit of a stir. Okay. Right. Okay. Refreshed. A tiny bit. So the fading footnote swallowed the susurrant plunder. Well, a footnote is obviously something that's meant to give further detail on something in a book. So a reference at the bottom of the page that ties off an explanation or cites another author or generally expands upon a point, usually made in a non-fiction book. But a fading footnote, that's got to be in an old book, a well-read tome, or something that's been long forgotten on the shelf. And on the other side of the Exquisite Corpse, plunder, riches, treasures that have been stolen, but that whisper and murmur. What about? Where they come from? Who stole them? Do they have a story to tell about who they really belong to? And can we find a way to connect the two? The fading footnote, how can that actually swallow the susurrant plunder? Might have to sidestep that and but use it some other way. How can we do that? The word swallowed that connects the two describing word noun combinations. The word swallowed is hunger. And how can a footnote be hungry? What if the book is about treasure? I'm thinking about the plunder here, or treasure hunting. Is there a magical method of treasure hunting? What if the book has something to do with the desire for plunder, the hunger for stealing, going out on as a pirate? Yes, as a pirate, going and stealing treasure. What if this is a handwritten book, and this is written with a magical ink that captures a person's desire? Once there was a queen of all pirates, though her reign was short, and all the pirate stories ever written since have left her out, deliberately erasing her from a history of sea-born crime. But during her lifetime, to prove her power, her unrivaled ability to track and hunt treasure from shipwrecks buried at the bottom of the ocean that nobody had any hope of finding, she wrote a book, a method of making the ink that gives you what you desire when you write about it. She wrote, therefore she found. I feel like this has something to say about storytelling magic. She knew the treasure's whereabouts by its susurrant whisper. Lust became her compass. Jewels waited for her at the bottom of the ocean, where ancient shipwrecks and memories crumbled. I'm not sure if I've managed to make the fading footnote actually swallow the susurrant plunder, but the hunger part is definitely making the story glue that holds it together, and I quite like it. Anyway, I think it's time for another Exquisite Corpse, a final one. Let's try for a describing word. This is from Robin the Mail Lady, meandering. Okay. What or who is meandering? I have a note from Paul Thomas. This is warlock. Okay, a meandering warlock. So it's like a male witch or wizard. Our action is from, oops, it's jumping out of my hand here, Alessandro Bozzo. Attended the theatre with. Okay. Right, let's have another go. Our describing word is from Paul Thomas. poisonous. And finally, a noun that will go with poisonous. This is from Paul Benfield. Sludge. Oh, that actually works quite well with poisonous. That's interesting. Okay. Right. The entire Exquisite Corpse is: the meandering warlock attended the theatre with the poisonous sludge. Okay, so meandering is like walking without any real sense of purpose or destination, and yet this is a warlock, which sounds like a purposeful sort of character to me, who's going to the theatre. So how's that going to work? I always feel like warlock sounds more dangerous than wizard, probably because it contains the word war. It sounds like he might be armed with more than a wand. I feel like his boots may clink, whereas a wizard may tread softly. The warlock to me is broad-shouldered, with a nose like a pug from the fights he's been in, whereas a wizard has never been in a physical fight. He's always just used magic. These, of course, are all my own interpretations, just from the flavour of the word warlock. You may be more familiar with gentler warlocks in fiction, or more ferocious wizards and witches. Let's have a look at this again. The meandering warlock attended the theatre. I can't avoid the last part of that sentence forever. Attended the theatre with the poisonous sludge. Okay, so whatever you think of warlocks, we have to agree this one had no real sense of urgency about where he's going, and yet he's going somewhere. He's going to a theatre with the poisonous sludge. That little word with presents us with a choice. Either a person or a creature may be identified as this poisonous sludge, a sticky kind of character, though it could be a shapeshifter or a monster that's very well practiced at hiding its true icky nature under many human clothes and avoiding bright lighting, perhaps. And this could be a reason why it wants to meet the warlock at the theatre. Definitely not the matinee. We need dimmed lights here. A place that feels safe for most people, full of distractions, a buzz of excitement in the air with a show about to happen, where people dress up. So actually, this might make it easier for a creature who's wearing a lot of clothes to cover up its poisonous sludge nature, looking a little bit outlandish, but less so amongst other people who've also dressed up. But back to that word with. If you go to the theatre or anywhere with a poisonous sludge, not recommended, you're either accompanied by the sludge in the form of a creature, or there is sludge on your person, like on your clothes. And thinking about this option, I feel like I'm tapping into a story idea, because the kind of warlock I'm imagining isn't the kind of warlock to go meandering around. If anything, he struts in his ancient but sturdy black shoes, black boots. He wears what looks like a long leather coat, in keeping with his classic biker's look, with his long straggly hair and tattooed arms. But if you look closely, you'll realise his coat is actually a cloak that flows from his shoulders. He wouldn't naturally choose to attend the theatre with anyone, but he's been poisoned. and he doesn't know it yet. The streetlight flickered a small puddle of light. The warlock stood, hesitating. How or why did he get here? Despite the late hour, the atmosphere from the queue outside the theatre across the road made the air tingle with excitement, anticipation. The warlock wavered on his heel, struggling to recall the evening stroll that had led him here of all places. His hand went to his pocket, fingering the edge of something smooth. Familiarity like a finger snapping, he pulled out the piece of card and stared at it. It was indeed a business card, but with nothing on it but a symbol. 2 intersecting lines, moving like snakes. He blinked, and the lines seemed to settle themselves into an even shape, a bit like a rune with curves on either side of it. He'd really had too much to drink. Except he hadn't had a thing. Steadying himself against the lamppost, he glanced across to the queue of people outside the theatre, chatting among themselves. But how long before their suspicions were aroused by this apparently dizzy man dressed all in black leather? He had a talent for stalking through the night unnoticed when he was clear-headed and in complete control of his faculties. But how long before someone alerted the theatre door security? A hand on his stomach, he muttered a counter-curse, a generic antidote that worked against most poisons. The effect was usually instantaneous, but he could no more shift the dizzy queasiness than he could recall what he might have eaten or drunk that could have been tampered with that day. Impossible. He'd been at home, prepared his own lunch and dinner. Concentrating hard, he loped past the crowd in as straight a line as he could muster. His stomach felt jellied, like a bag of poisonous sludge. Nodding to some nervous-looking theatre-goers, all dressed in their best, the warlock almost stumbled at the sight of the logo on the billboard beside them, advertising the show. It had the same mysterious symbol he'd seen on the card. There was a reason he was here, but what was it? Once he'd reached the end of the line, he stopped and leaned against the wall. Someone had led him here against his conscious will. The queue began to shift forward. As the warlock shuffled behind, a small flame flared across the road behind his back. A pair of wizened blue eyes narrowed in a rush of smoke. "Look where you're going," the woman croaked, too quiet for the warlock to hear. She grinned as the warlock stumbled again, determined to make his way inside and understand why he was here, but also helpless to the urge to get inside that theatre. As he walked, the underside of his boots flashed green. The witch grinned again. The way to drug a warlock was not through his stomach or his veins. Those crusty old boots of his were porous, and it was a sticky, poisonous sludge underneath them that had led him here. What next? Who is this enemy wielding unusual poisons to lure a warlock into a secret meeting in a theatre? Is it a gang of other witches and wizards? Is it a gang of humans? Do they want to blackmail him? Use him as a spy? Employ him to carry out some dirty work? Or help their underground group with some kind of revolution? So many possibilities. Well, I hope you found some ideas today to tickle your neurons. From a lumberjack disturbing goblins in his local forest, to a forgotten pirate queen with a treasure-hunting magic unmatched across the ages or the pages, to a warlock who's been cleverly cornered by his enemies through a strange potion, a poison stuck to the bottom of his boots. But what do they want with him? I wonder, what should I pick from today as the star phrase for a writing prompt for your feedback. I think overall, my favourite phrase from the Exquisite Corpses today has got to be the susurrant plunder. Treasure that whispers. I invite you to brainstorm the susurrant plunder. Please let me know if you have any ideas about this that you'd like to share with me and with listeners on the show, or actually on any of the writing prompts. You don't have to follow my suggestion. If you'd like to take part, just go to annatizard.com, scroll down to the bottom of any page to the footer and click where it says contact. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, go forth and be inspired. I hope you enjoyed today's Brainstoryum. You can find out more about Exquisite Corpse and my series, The Book of Exquisite Corpse, at annatizard.com. Subscribe to my e-newsletter and you'll get Volume 1 for free. And while you're there, why not submit a few words to the Socks of Destiny on my play page? You may inspire me or inspire yourself to write a unique new story. See you next time.